Welcome to First Things First. I wanted to start off on a happy note, but then I knew Broussard was on the show and I had some issues. I'll be honest with you. In the car yesterday.
What happened?
Wow.
Listening to Speak for Yourself. So, ooh, Broussard's on. This is going to be great. Nacho goes and Marcellus is going. And Broussard starts talking about the Blazers, starts talking about the Lakers. And I hear him say, not once, not twice, maybe 3 times, Nick Wright is right. And I said, what? What is happening? Multiple times it happened, Broussard. I don't know if it was a problem with my satellite radio, but can you explain what your rationale was yesterday and apologize to America?
I certainly don't remember saying Nick Wright is right 3 times, but look, I do agree with Nick. He's got one good take this year, which is that Portland has no chance to beat the Lakers. That's it. He's right about that. Doesn't make up all the dust.
They got to get there first, Wilds. We got to see if they even get there first.
It was a tough car ride. In any event, last night's win over the Nuggets, the Clippers clinched the 2 seed for the first time in franchise history. Kawhi was quiet in the first half, ended up with 26. Paul George, 27, and several fish. Nick, what was your takeaway from the Clippers' win over the Nuggets?
Well, listen, especially given Chris Broussard singing my praises on Speak for Yourself, nothing would thrill me more than to give his beloved Clippers immense credit this morning. The Clippers took care of business. They got the first-round matchup they wanted against Dallas. They assured they were going to get that by beating Denver. Kawhi looked good. They had 3 guys, their top 3 guys, scoring double figure, all 20-plus, I should say. So I'd love to give them credit. Unfortunately, I learned just 2 days ago on this very show that playing a close game against Denver through 3 quarters and then beating their backups in the 4th quarter is not something we congratulate. It is something we attack. I learned after the Lakers had the carbon copy version of this game, where your top 3 guys play well, where the game's tied or it's a 2-point game after 3, and then Denver rests everyone in the 4th, that win actually is a loss. That when you do that, it doesn't count, and actually we're going to point out the things you did wrong. So, listen, I thought the Clippers played really well. I thought it was a sneakily important game for them because they did want the 2 seed, not because home court matters, but because Dallas, they believe, I think, that Dallas doesn't stand much of a chance against them. And so all those things speak well of the Clippers. But if we are going to even pretend to hold the 2 Los Angeles teams to the same standard, which obviously we haven't done all year long, Broussard, then we've got to say, much like the Laker game a couple days ago, can't take anything from it. You were knotted after 3, and then in the 4th quarter, Denver played nobody. So much like in the Laker game, knotted after 3, 4th quarter, Denver plays nobody. So it's kind of like a push. I mean, I guess they got out healthy and they're happy and they got the win, but those wins don't count, I was told 48 hours ago. So, I mean, that's my takeaway from it because I am going to attempt to keep some level of consistency, Chris Broussard.
Just when I tried to give you some credit on Speak for Yourself, you revert to making no sense. Nick, right, the Lakers win was nothing like the Clippers win, okay? The Lakers needed the first game-winning shot of the season from Kyle Kuzma to survive the 3rd-string Nuggets, okay? And Michael Porter Jr. is somebody. Say it with me. I am somebody. Michael Porter Jr. is somebody. He played in the 4th quarter, and it wasn't even close. The Clippers ran away from what they win by 13 points, something like that. They ran away
13.
from the Nuggets. Yes, so it was nothing like the Lakers game. And, of course, the Lakers were at full strength when they survived Denver's 3rd string. And the Clippers were without Landry Shamet, Patrick Beverly, Montrezl Harrell. Stop it, Nick.
Lakers were without KCP. If we're going to go to the Landry Shamet card, I can play the KCP card. You called Landry Shamet. You just said, hold on. You said, well, Montrezl Harrell hadn't been around the whole bubble. Montrezl Harrell hadn't played for him yet. You said it was nothing like it. After 3 quarters, when both teams were playing their starters, the Lakers were tied with the Nuggets 88-88. After 3 quarters, when both teams were playing their starters, the Clippers were trailing the Nuggets 92-90. In both games, your top 3 scorers go for 23+. In both games, the Nuggets put their... You're right. Michael Porter Jr. did play in the fourth in this one, not against the Lakers, but so did Troy Daniels and Noah Vonleh play in the fourth in this one, unlike the Lakers. The Nuggets somehow found their 4th string last night, which I didn't know they were allowed to bring to the bubble. But no, I get it. We've known this all year long. When the Clippers play well, Wilds, it is a sign of their Broussard, it's a sign of their championship potential. And when they don't, we ignore it. So they played well last night. So it's a sign of their dominant championship potential. I've gotten it. It's taken me 70 games, but now I understand the evaluation of this basketball team, Broussard.
Can I cut to the chase? Because like Nick, I share a fondness for LeBron James. I know LeBron fairly well. I like him a lot. Obviously love what he does off the court. And like Nick, when I was younger and didn't know as much, I picked LeBron every year to win it because I was picking with my heart and not my head. Now I pick with my head, and my head tells me and virtually everyone else in the NBA that the Clippers are the best team in the Staples Center. And they're also the best team in the bubble, Nick, to your chagrin. There's nothing comparable about the 2 LA wins over Denver. The Lakers struggled to eke it out, and the Clippers ran away from it. What's similar?
Okay. So if we're judging championship potential by 4th quarters against the Denver Nuggets, point Broussard, Clippers win it. Hey, Clippers are going to play the Mavericks in the first round. The Mavericks, in one of the weirdest offensive stats, they're the best offensive rating in the history of the NBA. It's not a huge gap between the other teams this year. Nick, what are you giving the Mavericks chances of an upset over the Clippers?
The Mavericks' chances of winning the series are unfortunately incredibly slim because while the offense is outstanding, they are not a great closing team. And Dorian Finney-Smith, I guess, is going to guard Kawhi. And then who the hell's going to guard Paul George? There's a reason the Clippers are 3-0 against the Mavs, and 2 of those 3 games have been close going into the 4th, and then the Clippers have separated themselves. But so 2 points of order, however, just because I cannot allow this libel to stand. In 2018, I picked the Houston Rockets to win the title. Now, they didn't, but LeBron wasn't on that team. And last year, I picked the Milwaukee Bucks to win the title. They also didn't. However, LeBron was not on that team either. So I don't pick LeBron every year. Now, I am on a cold streak of getting the titles right. The last title I got right did happen to be 2016 when LeBron won it, unfortunately. However, I do not pick LeBron every year. I'm simply picking LeBron this year. But, Broussard, I will offer a friendly wager to you because I am assuming you're going to say the Clippers have no chance to, the Mavs have no chance to upset the Clippers. I believe the Mavs-Clippers series will still be going when the Lakers have already advanced. So while I don't think the Mavericks can beat them, I think that this series has a far greater likelihood of going 6, maybe even 7. That I said at the beginning of the bubble, if we get Clippers-Mavs, I think they're in a tough game 6 against the Mavs, and the Clippers end up winning it, while I think the Lakers will have a sweep or a gentleman's sleep. Now, maybe you'll shock me and you'll say the Mavs can beat the Clippers. I don't think you're going to do that. But I think this thing goes 6. It's a tough 6-game series for the Clippers with Game 6 in doubt in the 4th quarter. Clippers end up winning it. That's my official Clippers-Mavs prediction, Broussard.
Okay, first off, let me apologize. You don't pick LeBron every year. You just pick wrong every year, or virtually every year. So I get it.
All right, fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
But look, I think Dallas, it likely will last 5 games. All right, I'm like you. I give Dallas no chance. I don't give them slim chance. I give them no chance to beat the Clippers. In 2 years, the Mavericks will be legitimate contenders. Legitimate contenders. They got a great future, but right now they got no answer for the Clippers, and they're in trouble. The Clippers are too nasty, too feisty for them. You can save all those analytical numbers about how great their offense is. They are in trouble, and they know it. But let's see who the Lakers play first. If they play Memphis, then, yeah, they're going to sweep Memphis. If they get Phoenix, they probably sweep or beat them in 5. Portland, however, while I'm like Nick, I give them no chance to beat the Lakers, I do think Portland would take them 6 games at least and maybe 7. So I'll have to wait and see who that is before we make that bet. But Dallas goes no further than 6 games. Most likely they're out in 5.
Okay. Broussard, the Blazers are going to take them 7 games but still have 0 chance?
Yeah,
that's a good take.
You can go 7 and not have a chance to win.
That's not a good take.
Yeah. No chance.
Yeah, Paul George did that with Indy against the Heat. They went 7, had no chance. LeBron hadn't lost a game 7 in 12 years. Like, come on.
There's no home court advantage. There's no home court advantage. All the stats are out. There's no historical stats anymore about Game 7 without any historical advantage. Hey, Giannis got a 1-game suspension for this headbutt, what some people are calling the most efficient intimidation tactic in all of sports. By some people, I just mean me. You only get 1-game suspension. Bang, right in the head. More first things first after the break.
I do believe LeBron's won his last 2 Game 7.
What do we got here? Oh, Russell Westbrook's got a strained quad. This is not good at all. Needs to be reevaluated before the playoffs start. Nick, Rockets-Thunder playoff matchup will be blank.
Franchise-defining, unfortunately, potentially for Houston. And Broussard, you people might not know this, but once upon a time, Broussard was a pretty well-respected hip-hop MC, rapper, if you will. And so, to quote a line, it was all good just a week ago. Man, just a week ago, Houston looked like the team that was going to benefit from the bubble the most. Harden rested, Russ playing great, a very legitimate chance at the 3 seed if they can just beat the Pacers and the Spurs. They get a matchup with the Clippers, which they wanted in round 2. They move up and get the Jazz in round 1. Then they rest Harden and they lose a winnable game. Then Russ gets hurt. They lose another game. Now they're the 4 seed. They have a tough matchup with an incredibly clutch OKC team. And for my friend Daryl Morey, you trade Chris Paul and 4 first-round picks for Russ, in part because Chris Paul breaks down at the end of years. And now you're playing him, and Russ might be broken down, and Chris Paul's playing great, 3rd on the most valid MVP ballots you're going to find. And so it causes anxiety for me as someone who has some love for some people in Houston. And I just think this is a massively important first-round series, Broussard.
Well, look, Nick went too far. Franchise changing. I mean, we know what the Rockets are. And even if they survive this round, they were going out in the 2nd round anyway, regardless of which LA team they meet. So I wouldn't go that far. I know it's important because Daryl Morey did throw everything to get Russell Westbrook, and now it may not work out or it won't work out. But I'm going to go with the word delicious because Nick went through some of the storylines. I mean, you got Chris Paul against James Harden. We know they had their issues in Houston. Now it looks like Russell Westbrook could be out. I think OKC has a great chance to beat Houston. They were 2-1 against the Rockets with Harden and Westbrook playing in the 2 losses. They've got a perimeter with Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder, my pick for 6th man of the year, that can match up with the Rockets' small ball. Oh, this has major upset potential. And if the Rockets survive and Russ can come back, then they get Knicks Lakers. That's also delicious.
Okay, delicious. Not calling a playoff matchup delicious. Hey, Sixers-Celtics playoff series. Embiid in, Simmons out. Brad Stevens got an extension. Sixers won the regular season matchup. Nick, Celtics-Sixers playoff series will be blank.
Quickly, part 2 of my little-known fact about Chris Broussard's hip-hop career. Delicious was actually also his name, his MC name when he was rapping. All right, Celtics-Sixers first-round playoff matchup will be bad for Philly. Listen, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Philly, 3-1 against Boston in the regular season. We have seen Brad Stevens go up against the Brett Brown in the playoffs before. It doesn't typically go well. Embiid came back from an injury, then hurt his hand. He's out again. I think Philly would have had a far greater chance if they had been able to move up a line and play either Indiana or Miami in round 1, and then you'll see what happens in round 2 against Milwaukee. Now I think Broussard, they're going to lose to Boston in the first round. It's going to be all bad for Philly.
That's right.
Well, first things first, I was never called Delicious. I won't tell you what my name was, but it certainly wasn't Delicious. But look, this could be, I should have went with franchise changing in this one. I went with deja vu because 2 years ago, Boston eliminated Philly in 5. I don't think this will be 5, but Philly will get ousted. And franchise changing, Brett Brown will probably, he should, I think he'll get fired after this series. And then we'll see who the Sixers bring in as their new head coach.
Was the label Delicious Vinyl if the MC name wasn't Delicious? Hey, all playoff matchups are set. Lakers the only team waiting for their playoff opponent. Kyle Kuzma doesn't care. He told Dave McMenamin, hey, I don't think it's worst case scenario because we're war ready. We're ready to play anybody. A little bit of an overstatement, but Kyle Kuzma's been delivering great quotes. Look at Dame there. Like, okay, buddy, sure you're right. Hey, Nick, the Lakers being the only team waiting for their first round opponent is what?
Listen, this is a flaw in the bubble. And the NBA's done a great job, but the fact that the number 1 seeds already lost home court advantage, which they earned, and now every single team in the league, it's Thursday morning, they can already start preparing for the playoffs. And the Lakers aren't going to be able to start preparing until potentially Sunday. It's a flaw in the bubble. Now, it's not an excuse, and the Lakers are going to roll whomever they play in the first round anyway, but it is something the league needed to do a better job of, and I think it was in the quest to make this part of the regular season as exciting as possible with the playing, with all of that. They didn't recognize what it was going to do to the team who deserved the clearest path through the first round, the number 1 overall seed, Broussard.
We're right there on the edge of excuse.
Did you sense the fear and trepidation in Nick before you threw out that false bravado of, now the Lakers are going to roll through everybody.
We're going to roll them. We're going to roll them.
Right.
But there is, it's not quite fair.
That's not what it is.
He is right, though. It's the bubble's wrath is what I called it. And look,
thank you.
Ooh, I like that.
You agree with me.
Yes, the Lakers played for that number 1 seed all year. You could see it. It's going to mean nothing. And now they have to wait and see who they're going to face, which does put them at a slight advantage compared to the
That's
others.
exactly what I said. Why is it with fear when I say it?
I just sensed it.
Because it's... All right, Giannis got a 1-game suspension for headbutting Mo Wagner. This seems ridiculous. Carmelo got 15 games for slapping somebody, but you can smash somebody in the head. Anyways, 1-game suspension is what, Nick?
It's exactly right. And Giannis was going to rest this game anyway. So it's actually totally meaningless, which is fine. Listen, Giannis needed to remind people, as Dame said, to misquote Damian Lillard, to put some respect on his bleeping name. People weren't doing it, so Mo Wagner caught a headbutt. It happens. The 1-game suspension is exactly right, Broussard.
It's a playoff perk. Look, she deserved at least 2. And look, a headbutt is a punch, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that can do damage.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm glad he didn't get more than 1 game because I want to see him in game 1 of the playoffs, and everybody else does. And that's why it's only 1 game. Regular season is probably two games, maybe 3.
The only benefit of a headbutt is you can only headbutt people of similar size. Dak says he's got dreams of being a Cowboy until he's done throwing a football. More on that with Brian Westbrook after the break. But first, here's Patrick Mahomes on Tampa Tom.
Can you imagine yourself playing at age 43?
I mean, that's the goal. I've talked to a couple of my teammates that have some younger kids, and I always joke with them. And I say, I'm going to be playing with your kids whenever you're watching from home.
Hey, we're back with Brian Westbrook talking Cowboys. Dak met with reporters, talked about his future in Dallas, even beyond the 1-year franchise tag. Take a listen.
I'm excited as hell to be a Dallas Cowboy. I've been a fan of this organization and been a fan of this program for years. I love every bit of the opportunity and the platform that I get to be the quarterback here. I love this team. I'm excited about what we have, what we can do and accomplish this year. So no frustration as far as that. Once again, I believe something will get done. And with my hopes, I believe I'll be a Dallas Cowboy for the rest of my career.
As soon as they make me the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. That was the end of that quote. I don't know if we cut it off or if that was just his internal monologue. And so here's the deal for Dak being a Cowboy for the rest of his career, or at least past the franchise tag this year and the franchise tag next year. They're going to have to make a Super Bowl this season because there's two paths here. One is the Cowboys don't make the Super Bowl. Dak continues to demand to be the highest paid player ever, knowing he has the massive leverage of $38 million fully guaranteed for the season after this via the franchise tag and then true free agency. And the other one is that they disappoint or they make the Super Bowl and the Cowboys pay him whatever he wants. And so I don't think Dak is going to settle after he didn't settle when he was looking at $3 million, when he didn't settle when he was looking at $31 million. So in order for Dak to not hit free agency in 2 years, in order for Dak to be a Cowboy for the rest of his career, Brian, I think this team has to make their first Super Bowl in a quarter century. And by the way, I think they could. Under the radar last night, they had Everson Griffin. It's a totally remade defensive line. He's an outstanding player. They lose Robert Quinn, but they added Dontari Poe, Gerald McCoy. They get Crawford back from injury. You hope DeMarcus Lawrence gets back to being a double-digit sack guy. And you had Everson Griffin. You upgraded at coach. You had a great draft pick, I believe, in CeeDee Lamb. This is a team that absolutely could make the Super Bowl. But the only way I think Dak is a Cowboy for the rest of his life is if they do make the Super Bowl, because otherwise they're going to franchise him again, and then he's going to be a free agent, and the whole league's going to be able to bid on him, Brian.
Well, I agree with you in the fact that if they make the Super Bowl, Dak definitely will be back as probably a lifelong Cowboy, or at least through his prime. But I also think there's another way to go about it. I think that when you look at Dak, obviously coming off the best season of his career, almost 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 11 interceptions, but the team was 8-8, and so they couldn't beat the good teams, even with Dak having that type of year. The question is, do you believe with the addition of Everson Griffin, Dontari Poe, all Gerald McCoy, CeeDee Lamb, and most importantly, Mike McCarthy, is that worth 2 or 3 wins? If it is, then that means they're 10-6 or 11-5. That gives you an opportunity in the playoffs. And once you get into the playoffs, it's about any given Sunday. It's about can this offense and can this defense come together for one game and try to win. And if you tell me that Dak and this Cowboys team wins a playoff game or 2, in my opinion, that gives him the leverage that goes and be able to say, you know what, we didn't accomplish the Super Bowl. We didn't get there the way that we wanted to, but we improved mightily from last year. And if you're Mike McCarthy, you're going in, banging in on that desk saying, Jerry Jones, we got so much better from last year. Don't put me back at the starting line again with having to deal with a different quarterback. So if I'm Dak, I'm just going out there and play. And I love everything that he said. He said, I'm a fan of the Cowboys. I love being a Cowboy. And let's worry about today and not worry about tomorrow. That's what true leaders say, and that's how true leaders talk. So he's a franchise guy already. He's a guy that's going to be the face of your franchise. But now he has to put some wins together. And if we talk about 2 to 3 wins, that's what they have to add. Mike McCarthy, all those additions, I think would be a big part of them winning those opportunities and then make it into the playoffs. And then you'll go to the table and you're talking about a quarterback that is a playoff quarterback that has led his team to a playoff with a brand new off season, with a brand new offensive side of things, with a coach that wasn't even in place when you're talking about you had those off-season practices, those OTAs. Now, just imagine if Dak can go through those OTAs and things in the next season with Mike McCarthy. I think he'll be much better as well.
I want to take a look at the Cowboys' path here. Nick, I know you've got them at 11-5 for the year, and you're talking about them going to the Super Bowl. And we just saw Jimmy G go to the Super Bowl, lose it, and that didn't seem to help his job security at all. Got the front office saying, maybe we'll bring in 43-year-old Tom Brady. Do you think Dak needs to win the Super Bowl or just get there?
No, the Cowboys and Niners are very, very different teams. And if the Cowboys get there, it's going to be, even with the upgraded defensive line, it's going to be because they are a top 5 offense. With Mike McCarthy, Zeke, that offensive line, those receivers, and Dak, Jimmy G was a passenger on the Niners train that got to the Super Bowl. And, by the way, the Niners weren't foreign to getting to Super Bowls. Colin Kaepernick had taken them to a Super Bowl in the last few years. The Cowboys haven't been to a Super Bowl since 1995. What I'm talking about is their playoff success and his becoming the highest paid player in the history of the league being predicated on that, because, let me back up a bit, I don't think he's accepting a penny less than highest paid player ever, because now he has all the leverage. $38 million fully guaranteed via the franchise tag for 2021, and then true free agency is his worst case scenario. But because the Cowboys also haven't been to a conference championship game in a quarter century, maybe Brian's right that they don't have to quite get to the Super Bowl in order to pay Dak. Maybe if they get a game away from the Super Bowl, which every team in the NFC has been over the last 20 years except for Dallas, Detroit, and Washington, then maybe that would be enough. I'm a little skeptical given the fact that they couldn't come to an agreement with him last offseason or this offseason, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this team wins the Super Bowl, Brian. I haven't done my picks yet, but my regular season picks, the best record I have is 12-4 in the NFC, and I've got Dallas going 11-5. The 1 seed is a real possibility. Getting to the Super Bowl is a real possibility. And so I think this is the best Cowboys team Dak's been on, and I certainly believe it's going to be the best coached Cowboys team Dak's been a part of. And so I don't think it's a crazy idea to say they make the Super Bowl and they make him the highest paid player ever. I just don't think he's going to be a Cowboy for life if they're 10-6 first round exit, because then I don't think he's getting that contract extension that he wants, Brian.
No, I agree with you there. 10-6 in the first round exit probably doesn't get him there, because at that point, Mike McCarthy said, you know what, we could have done this with Andy Dalton, but he has to be, 10-6 in a couple games in the playoffs, or at least 11-5 in a couple games in the playoffs. And, I have them at the Cowboys at 10-6 at this point, and I certainly can see them at 11-5. I can't get them to 12-4 at this point. But it's really all dependent on how Dak kind of gets used to this offense, but more importantly, what that defense can do. And I know they added a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the ball, but I watched that team all of last season. I watched the last 9 games this offseason. Again, in 8 of those 9 last games, they gave up over 100 yards rushing. In a lot of those games, as far as on the defensive side of the ball, they couldn't get off the field. They were 25th in takeaways on the defensive side of the ball, only had 7 interceptions. The easiest way to make things easier for your offense is shorten the playing field. How you want to score more points, which the Dallas Cowboys definitely need to be able to do against the better teams, shorten the field. Get some turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. And how do you do that? You win in the trenches. That's why you go get Gerald McCoy. That's why you go get Dontari Poe. That's why you go get Everson Griffin. They're focused on pressuring the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball so that the offense has more opportunities and better opportunities with shorter fields. And to me, that's going to be a big-time key for Dak and that football team winning. Now, offensively, Mike McCarthy is going to have more motions. He's going to have more variety, more creativity on the offensive side of the ball. Give Dak some easy opportunities, similar to what Jimmy G had out there in San Francisco because of Kyle Shanahan's schemes and the way that he used motions and shifts. Give them some easy opportunities, run the football, but keep the defense off balance. If they can do that, I think this Cowboys team is as talented as any team in the league, and they can win a lot of football games. And that's going to be the key to Dak getting that long-term deal that everyone is looking for.
Nick, I want to go back to you saying that Dak has all the leverage. If he gets up there on the podium and says, I want to be a Cowboy for the rest of my life. I grew up a Cowboys fan. I'm happy here. And then you also say, well, he's got all the leverage. He might leave. But he's given no public sort of, announcement that he has any interest in leaving whatsoever. So why do you think he has that much leverage?
All right. Well, so I disagree with the premise, respectfully, that he's given no public indication that he doesn't want to leave. To me, every time he turned down a contract extension was a very public indication that he might want to leave. And the reason he has all the leverage is because He keeps rolling the dice, and he's yet to crap out. And barring a major, an unspeakable injury, not a torn ACL, a horrifying injury that you don't even like to talk about, his worst case scenario is to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in 2021 at $38 million, and then to be able to be bid on by the entire league. The reason guys typically don't get to true free agency is because they can't stomach it on the front end. He's already stomached the two most difficult years of it. The final year of his rookie deal, and he's now signed up for the first year of the franchise tag. $38 million for the season after this one, and then the whole league, like, for example, San Francisco, if they move on from Jimmy G, like, for example, New England, if Cam doesn't work out, the whole league being able to bid on him. That's how Kirk Cousins has become the highest paid player in the NFL over the last 5 years, with every year he's played has been fully guaranteed. So I just think the Cowboys, their opportunity to get Dak on something of a bargain was a couple years ago, Brian. And at this point, the fact that they are this far down the road, to me, the leverage is firmly and almost exclusively in his corner.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. The leverage, it falls back to Dak's side. And when you have a player that is willing to bet on himself, and listen to me, I was one of those guys that said, listen, give me the money because I don't want to bet on the fact that I'm going to be completely healthy and that we're going to win games. And Dak has said for a long time now, I'm going to be healthy, 64 games that he started, that we're going to win some games. You bring in new personnel, new coach, they're going to win a bunch of football games. And now you have a quarterback coming off the best season of his career. And this is what that best season of his career does. That gives him confidence that he can do it again. That gives him confidence that he can make any throw. That gives him confidence that they can win some football games that they probably weren't able to win last year. That's going to propel him to have a better season than he has had in the past. And I think when you add Mike McCarthy to that, this is a great opportunity for Dak. And it does put the Cowboys in a bad situation because they're going to have to pay him, and it's going to be a lot more money than it was this past offseason.
Okay. Hey, Lakers are the only NBA playoff team waiting to find out their first-round opponent. Nick says it's a huge disadvantage, but it's not an excuse. He also has a bonkers theory on
it's
who they
a
should
disadvantage.
be rooting for next on First Things
I don't
First.
think I said huge.
Oh,
I
did I
think
say
I said
advantage?
it's a disadvantage. No, you
that's
said
what I meant.
huge.
According to the rookie review, Zion sitting out the finale tonight. He's got a sore knee. Nick, how should the Pelicans, not the Birds, the team, feel about Zion's future after year one?
Well, I think you feel good about his future, but this was a total waste of a season. And listen, the injury before the year set him back. Leaving the bubble for a family emergency derailed their bubble hopes. And I think the Pelicans were too cautious with Zion throughout, and I think it could hurt them. I'm one of the few people left, evidently, that believes even if you can't win a title, Broussard, you can gain something from making the postseason. You said earlier you think the Mavs can be title contenders in a couple of years. I assume baked into that is some of what Luka will learn in this postseason, what Kristaps will learn in this postseason. And the Pelicans were super cautious with Zion on the front end. To me, they were too cautious with him with this burst restriction on the back end. 5 of his 8 fewest minutes played all season came in the bubble. And so now they're going home early when there's 4 teams still alive for that 8 spot. It's just very, very disappointing, even if I'm still very bullish on Zion moving forward, Broussard.
Well, I hear you, Nick, on them being cautious, overly cautious, but there's a reason. All right, they must know things we don't know. And I got to put a lot of this on Zion. If you're the New Orleans Pelicans, there is no way you feel as good about your future as you did a year ago. A year ago, it all looked great. You got some young players from the Lakers that you like. Zion looks like he's going to be a monster. And now he has not shown that he can play 3 straight months of basketball at a high level. And I'm being generous to say 3 straight months. It had to be incredibly disappointing that after 4 months off, he couldn't make it through a week of practices without getting cramps. And then he only played 5 out of the 8 games. And those 5 games, he was on burst restrictions. somebody in that organization has got to have the guts to tell Zion, you got to lose weight. You got to get in shape. You're 20 years old. We can't have you on load management. I know it's tough nowadays with these young kids, but somebody's got to tell him that because it feels obvious that he's got to drop some pounds, period.
Okay. Wow. Bucks and Grizzlies facing off at 4 Eastern today. Memphis a half game back at the 8 seed. Broussard, how much criticism does Ja deserve if they miss the playoffs?
Not much. Look, he's a rookie, obviously. They lost their second leading scorer in Jaren Jackson. Remember, he got injured and missed half the games in the bubble. And Ja's been great. 20 points, 10 assists a game in the bubble. I get it, 1-7. They did lose to New Orleans. You've got to figure they should be able to beat a Milwaukee team that has nothing to play for and doesn't have Giannis. But even if they don't make it, just being in the hunt was a huge huge accomplishment for this Memphis team. I get it, but he's a young rookie. I'm not going to kill him.
2 things. One is America, while you still can. I think on Fox Bet, I think the Grizzlies are getting a 1.5 this afternoon. This is an empty your account lock of the century. Taylor Jenkins worked for Mike Budenholzer for 6 years. There is no chance Bud wants to win this game. The Grizzlies will win today. But even if they win today, I understand this is bubble experience has been a disappointment for them. Ja deserves no criticism. Who's the rookie that's leading a team to the postseason? There is none. Tyler Hero's in a rotation. Michael Porter Jr.'s played well, but he's like a rookie with an asterisk because he was the draft class before and sat out a year. The only reason Memphis is in this position is because of the brilliance of Ja. Their other best player, Jaren Jackson Jr., did get hurt. He's in year 2. Brandon Clark, who's been good for them, is another rookie. The whole Iguodala saga could have derailed a lot of teams. It didn't. So Ja, to me, deserves no criticism whatsoever. It's only his brilliance that put them in the discussion for the postseason all year long. And they got unlucky early in the bubble. The overtime loss to Portland, a terrible foul at the end of the game against the Spurs, close game against New Orleans, then Jaren Jackson gets hurt. Just everything went wrong for him. I don't put it on Ja.
What was that unlucky in the Portland game? Hey, we finished on a playoff plan.
Yeah,
Lakers remain the final team without a playoff opponent. Nick thinks this was a huge disadvantage. Earlier in the show, he said it's a massive disadvantage. He said it's a huge disadvantage. He said it's totally unfair. It's not real. I'm exaggerating that. He's going to get upset.
It's called
He's going to get upset. Let's look at the playoff scenarios. All sorts of things happening. Here's what you need to look at. Blazers need to win, or Memphis, Phoenix, San Antonio. 2 of those guys need to lose. Let's talk about the Lakers here. Nick, who should the Lakers be rooting for? And don't say, oh, they can play anybody like Kyle Kuzma. We're ready for anybody. They got to be rooting for somebody.
As someone who has picked the Lakers to win the title, not get out of the first round, not have a good showing, if the goal is to win the title, Broussard, they should want Portland. Because Portland is the only team that will demand their full attention. Portland is the team that is the best preparation for a Rockets team in round 2, or if the Rockets don't get there, even an OKC team in round 2 that goes with a 3-guard lineup. Portland is a team that will not allow them to ease into the postseason, and I think that's what they need. Because while I'm not freaking out the way most of America is over the Lakers' lackadaisical bubble performance, I will admit, due to my commitment to take integrity, that they haven't looked particularly sharp ever since the first couple games of the bubble. And so if they end up getting Memphis with no Jaren Jackson Jr. somehow falls into the postseason, they can sleepwalk through round 1, and then I don't think that's good for them to win the title. So if the goal is to win the title, Broussard, I think they should want Portland, because I think it will prepare them the rest of the way and it will force their full attention in round 1.
I hear you, Nick, and I do think Portland would be the greatest preparation for their second and third round matchups because, yeah, it'd be the toughest matchup in the first round. That said, no, pull for Memphis. They want to see Memphis. LeBron James,
Of course.
LeBron doesn't need anybody to prepare him for the second round. He understands what this is all about. Anthony Davis should as well. This team needs confidence. Kyle Kuzma is brimming with confidence. But Quinn Cook, Deion Waiters probably brimming with too much confidence.
Waiters got plenty of confidence.
JaVale McGee. These guys need to play a Memphis team that they can wax, or even Phoenix, that they can run through, start playing well together, get their confidence back. Some of the guys maybe get their legs back, shoot the three well for more than one game. So, I think they need to be pulling for Memphis so they can ease their way into the playoffs. I understand your take. It's not bad, but no, because my commitment to take integrity. I gave Portland an 8 to 10% chance. 8 to 10% chance to beat the Lakers in the first round. I know that's not much, but it's 8 to 10% more than Memphis or Phoenix has.
Wilds. The team that nobody has mentioned, by the way, the team that nobody has mentioned that I think the Lakers least want to play, oddly enough, is the Spurs. And it's not because the Spurs can beat them, but it's because, A, the Spurs don't prepare you for anything because they play a different brand of basketball than every other team in the NBA, thanks to their just dedication to the mid-range. And if LeBron has not been sharp offensively, going up against Pop, who has coached against him in 3 NBA finals and knows LeBron's tendencies, I don't think is the best way for LeBron to get back on track. So I know nobody's anticipating the Spurs, especially they don't even have Aldridge, of getting there. But if I were ranking who I would want to face if I'm the Lakers, Portland 1 because of what you would get from it. Phoenix 2, because I also think Phoenix would demand some attention because of what Booker's doing. Memphis 3, because there's nothing from it. And the Spurs 4, because LeBron dealing with Pop in that mid-range game. So that's the hierarchy. Portland, Phoenix, Memphis, the Spurs. That's who the Lakers should be rooting for. Wilds.
Fear.
Okay.
Fear.
I hope they play this in the Blazers locker room.
Fear of
You don't want the Spurs.
Dame.
You're afraid of the Spurs.
I'm respecting you, Dame.
Don't want the Spurs.
Kevin
Now
Wildes
I'm afraid of the
respects you.
Spurs.